Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Sloke Bhakti Bhakti Nishtaki. So looking at Canto 10 Southern Bone, Chapter 82, Krishna meets the inhabitants of Vrindavan, and verse 45. Aham hi sarva bhutanam adhirantum nitram badi bhautikam yatha kamba bhurvaya yotir angana. Aham hi sarva bhutanam adhirantum nitram badi Mohitakam yatha kamba Durvaya yati angana.
Aham sarva bhutana adiranto nitaram badi bhautikānām yatha kamba
Bhutanam, of created beings, Adi, the beginning, Anta, the end, Antaram, inside, Bahi, outsider, Mohitakanam, of material things, water, Luri, earth, Vayu, air, Jyoti, and fire, Angama, all ladies. Dear ladies, I am the beginning and end of all created beings, and exist both within and without them. Just as the elements ether, water, earth, air, and fire are the beginning and end of all material objects, and exist both within and without them. Purport by the disciple of Srimad. According to Sri Sudha Siddhara Baswami and Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Krishna implies the following idea in this verse. If you know that I am the Supreme Lord, there should be no question of your suffering any separation from me. Since I pervade all existence, your unhappiness must be due to a lack of discrimination. Therefore, please take this instruction from me, which will remove your ignorance. But the truth of the matter is that you go through were your previous lives great masters of yoga, and thus you already know the science of Jnana Yoga. Furthermore, whether I try to teach this to you in person or through my representative, so the Uddhava, it will not produce the desired result. Jnana Yoga simply causes suffering for those who are fully immersed in pure love of God. So this is, unfortunately, an extremely technical purport. But I will try and break it down. It's very, very important purport. If you're familiar with Bhagavad Gita, you will recognize that this verse is very similar to the chapter 10, verse 8. So that's the Pravada, or Iti Sarva Pravada, Iti Mata Patanteya. So those who are wise know that I am the source of all emanations in this world, and therefore worship me with all their hearts. Very similar verse. First verse of Chaturshloki Gita. So I'm just going to try and access the PowerPoint onto the screen, which I should be able to do. If it times out, let me know. I've changed the settings. Are we on there? Yeah, okay. So we'll go very slowly. Okay. Now, let's do something very fundamental first. Very, very fundamental, very important. One of the most important rules that you learn both in the Bhagavad Gita and in Srimad Bhagavatam, which is in the chapter literature, is that jnana is depending on bhakti, not the other way around. Yeah? If you have bhakti, the purer your bhakti, the more knowledge you have. But there's no purpose of knowledge but to reach pure bhakti. Right? So if we're to ask the question, why should we read Srila Prabhupada's books? Right? So many people don't know the answer to that question. Very fundamental question. The reason we read Prabhupada's books and read his purports is because Prabhupada is Paramatma Samhahita. His devotional service is so extremely high that the Lord himself is directly revealing knowledge to him. Because knowledge is dependent on bhakti, not the other way around. Okay? When you have pure bhakti, you get the knowledge. The purpose of knowledge is only to reach pure bhakti. Okay? So what you're getting is the insights of the super soul and the Lord Krishna directly through Prabhupada's words. Right? It's as if you imagine Prabhupada is not there and Krishna is directly speaking to you because he's speaking through the paradigm of Prabhupada. Okay? So we have to grasp this concept. Those who are in Bhava or Prema, they don't need to memorize hundreds of slokas. Yeah? And the prerequisites of Bhava and Prema is the absence of the desire for sense gratification. Okay? For those who have the tingling residual desire to enjoy this world, the door of repeated birth and death is always there, and the path of liberation always remains closed. Okay? We have to be very, very careful with this. In ISKCON, it is well said that 95% devotees will end up in upper planetary systems to provide up in the spiritual world. 4.9% of people may end up in Vaikuntha, and less than 1% of people may have a chance of going to Goloka Vrindavan. And if you think that's not true, just think about what happened to Devahiti in the third canto. Okay, Devahiti had Lord Kapila as a son. Lord Kapila gave her the instructions. Highly elevated soul of Satyayuga, lived a perfect life of piety, but she ended up in Vaikuntha, in Kapila Vaikuntha. Right? So we know the standard to get to Vaikuntha is very, very high. And to go beyond that is almost impossible. So we'll talk about that. Doesn't mean we don't aim for these things in terms of purification. We'll try and discuss how practically we can apply some of this and what the verse is getting at. And then the last line we saw, Jnana Yoga simply causes suffering for those who are fully immersed in pure love of God. So the question is, why come to Bhagavatam class, if that's the case, And the answer is that we're not in pure love of God, we're trying to get there. So that's what we're here. Right. So this is the background of this chapter. One important point on the background. The Yadavas and other kings met at Kurukshetra on the solar eclipse to discuss topics related to Lord Krishna to get pious credit. You'll see that in the summary of the chapter in the Bhagavatam. The Nanda Maharaj and the Kava community come to see him because that can take separation from him. Yeah? Now what you see here is two different reasons and motivations for wanting to see Krishna. Completely different motivations. Yeah? One of them is some benefit, material or spiritual. Yeah? What we know is called Yoga Mishra Bhakti, impure Bhakti. Bhakti which is not ahitaki in aparahita, has some motivation behind it, and therefore is not causeless, does not come from itself. If in your phone, you will have two different types of friends maybe. One of which you just go, I'd love to call that guy, let's click a ring, he's your best buddy, you speak to him, and you feel great when you put the phone down. The other one, I haven't spoken for a few weeks, I better make sure he knows I care a little bit. Let's see what he's doing, or let me see if there's something he needs or something he can give me, I can go around to get something. Two different types of relationships, you see that. Okay? What we're trying to develop is ahitaki aparahita, or anukulashaya studium, as they say in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Canto 1, Chapter 1, verse 11. Right? That's what Prabhupada is trying to push us towards. We don't want anything from the Lord, so then we can start entering into the pleasure of bhakti. When we come to the temple, we see the deity, we discipline ourselves not to ask for anything. Yeah? That's very important, because then we're moving on to the potentiality of having bhava. Okay? If we're coming in going, my son, I'm going to get past the exams, I get my job, and like that. That shows a lack of shraddha. Shows a lack of knowledge that the Supreme Lord is there at all times. Whatever happiness and unhappiness is due to you from your previous karma is going to happen. It shows you believe still that material acquisition or something going right is linked to happiness and distress. But the Gita is telling you no, they're two separately different things. Even if you're completely poor and all your money went, it does not mean that the same amount of happiness will not exist in your life. Very basic point. This is not understood by many people. And that's why it makes sense in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna said, don't over-endeavor. Why? You're only going to get what's due to you. Happiness and suffering. Yeah? You're going to suffer. You're going to suffer. This is a place of suffering. If it wasn't, you'd want to stay here forever. I've designed it so you're going to suffer. At the same time, you'll get some benefit, happiness, and you can tolerate it being here, so you can come closer towards me. That is the purpose of happiness and distress. Yeah? So we see in Upatijashra, Rupa Goswami's Upatijashra, one of the first few verses, is of course, don't over-endeavor for materialistic things, because that stops you from reducing your sense gratification. And if it stops you from reducing your sense gratification, you can't get out of repeated birth, death, and old age disease. which is one of the primary reasons of being in ISKCON, is to stop rebirth. The whole purpose of this human form of life is to make sure you don't get back in this world. Okay. So, can we spot the difference between the two sets of people arriving? Yes, we've just discussed this. Yeah, kings in one are seen in Krishna and his wives worship, the others are getting Krishna's association, they want something in return. Krishna points out to the cowherd girls that they cannot be separated from him. He dwells in the force of himself. Yeah? The difference between the pure devotee and what we call the reciprocating devotee, the beginning of one's relationship with God. Yeah? That's we talked about that. Right. So let's talk about the difference between developing a non-ritualistic approach to bhakti, going beyond jnana. That's what the last part of the purport is. Be wary of jnana yoga. You want to achieve pure bhakti. How do you get there? Okay. So, very important verse. Aham savesa bhutesu bhutanam statasadava dhamma avanyanam madhya pushchete vichavadam banam. I am present in every living entity as a supersoul. If someone neglects or disregards that supersoul everywhere and engages himself in the worship of the deity in the temple, that is simply imitation. So, the understanding must happen that every person in the temple that you interact with has different karmic history over millions and millions of births. We've all had trillions of Kali Yugas. We've been in this material world since time immemorial. We've been worms, we've been dog eaters, we've been dogs and cats, we've done it. I've been many, many times to get to this point. This piety that allows us to be here and listen to this has happened over many, maybe thousands of births. So when you have the vision, the first vision is seeing the supersoul in the heart of a living entity. As you approach pure bhakti, compassion, the softness of the heart and compassion must always be there. And that means the tendency to criticize has to drop. Because criticizing is a form of bodily sense gratification. It's a form of benefit. This body is important. But you're not the body. You're not this body. There's something inside the body. There's something else you're internal. It's your identification of this body and the other person seeing the other person as that body. It creates this mentality of he does this like this, I do this like this, he's different to me, I'm different to him. He sings like this, I sing like this. Krishna is watching as the Paramatma very carefully. Where is the tendency to criticize being diminished? Where is the heart being softened? Because we end up in the spiritual world and we have that conduct that we kicked out and left back here for trees and birth straight. It's not what's going to get us out of it. I'm going to practically explain how this happens, how you can actually improve this. Okay. So let's have a look at the purport of this verse. Very important. One of the mandatory verses on some of the courses now, Bible. In purified consciousness or Krishna consciousness, one sees the presence of Krishna everywhere. Therefore, if one only engages in deity worship in the temple and does not consider other living entities, then he's the lowest grade of devotional service. One who worships the deity in the temple and does not show respect to others is a devotee on the material platform in the lowest stage of devotional service, Sri Bhagavatam, directly from Krishna. A devotee should try to understand everything in relationship with Krishna and try to serve everything in that spirit. So the other person next to you is also a fragmentary part of the Lord. Right? As such, he is also worshipful. Same as an ant or a cockroach or whatever. To serve everything means to engage everything in the service of Krishna. If a person is innocent and does not know his relationship with Krishna, advanced devotees should try to engage in the service of Krishna. One who is advanced in Krishna consciousness can engage not only in living being, but everything else in the service of Krishna. So this is the vision of non-separation. Seeing things as not being separate from the Lord as one progresses. Everything belongs to the Lord. This is his energy. This body is his energy. It will be utilized. So we just discussed the conclusions of those arriving on Kurukshetra. And jnana yoga does not have love, because the nature of speculative discussions on Krishna are purifying, but not in themselves a mark of acceptance of the Lord. It took me some time to think about how to phrase this, and that's how I came up with. Right? You're speculating. The heart is not really fully accepted. The heart is fully accepted as when you speculate. If you're a Bhagavad prayer and you have pure bhakti, you don't need to think about jnana, obviously. Because what you're doing every second of the day is thinking, how do I please Krishna, how do I please Krishna, how do I please Krishna? How do I even pour water in a way that pleases Krishna? You know? Every breath, every thought is for Krishna. And we have those people in our movement. Yeah? And maybe you'll see that there's a commonality in those people, and I'll discuss that in a minute. People do exist. Yeah? So Lord Chaitanya's movement is replacing speculation on Krishna by asking something from the Lord, both a mark of false ego, to accepting oneself as a servitor. A servitor always wants to work out what the Lord's wishes are. Yeah? Yeah? So I drew a very bad graph this evening, which I'm probably not going to. I apologize for this, I'm not good with pencils. Right? I don't know if you can see that. Right? So, if you see that, I don't know if you're familiar with basic maths, but you've got an x-axis and a y-axis. Carry on with this now. Still asking that. Yeah, so you've got, as you increase in sense gratification on the left-hand side, and then pure bhakti is the y-axis, right? And you can see, the less you want to gratify your own senses, including your own ego, the purer your bhakti becomes. And the bigger the chance you have of getting out of it. How do we do this? How do we purify ourselves? That's the question. All well having the knowledge. So sense gratification, we have to understand the disease. Okay? It can be very subtle. Example, 10:50 a.m. I want a hot chocolate, but why should I enjoy it? Why should I enjoy this hot chocolate? Krishna will not enjoy it. As my life as a bhakta is about reducing senses. I cannot see how Krishna will enjoy the hot chocolate. I won't have the hot chocolate. I forget the hot chocolate. These senses are only for the service of the Lord. So it's called, you start practically renouncing little things. At 2 p.m. I will enjoy chips. But why should I tell you enjoy the chips? And not Krishna will enjoy it. How can I make Krishna enjoy the chips? So every time the senses are enjoying some object of the senses, immediately the question comes, where is Krishna in this enjoyment? How do I reduce? Okay? Where's the ego and where's the mind? Okay? 5 p.m. I will go to a garden to see flowers. But why should I not take flowers for Krishna? How do I use that for Krishna? Yeah? Something I was discussing with my wife the other day. Yeah, she talking about what the boys are going to do. Yeah? Very careful. Yeah? Like, allow one of them to become an architect or something. She said to me, I said, why? Yeah? So it feels good to have a son that's an architect. You know? I said, what are you feeling? The soul or the senses aspect? Yeah? So it was a very popular discussion by Srimad Bhagavatam. Yeah? Asat, Indriyani, the fake senses, the senses of the body, and Sadindriyani, the senses of the soul. The soul that actually only feels pleasure when Krishna is feeling pleasure. So really, like trying to explain to her, actually, you know, if he goes to the jungle and becomes a devotee, that would be the hardest thing. She said, I'm crazy, it's coming around with things like this. But actually, in terms of the Bhagavatam, if every desire of ours is for Krishna, why would we not want anybody else that pure devotional service and give up sense gratification? Of course we would. Because that's what the Lord wants. All the effort to create the material world. So we can learn what is true ambition and what is not true ambition. Yeah? Because that is what's going to purify us. We have these attachments. Yeah? If you get a chance, you can look at the second canto, the first chapter, verses 2 to 6. Progressively caution about grihastha ashram. Be very careful what you want for everyone else in the grihastha ashram, because it will put you on the body decay. If you think on the bodily plane, I want them to do this, I want to do that, I want my wife to get a bigger job. Why? What's in it for Krishna? And really be honest. More money, but do you need that, or do you need more prema bhakti? Is it attached to the road of attachment, or is that a road of detachment that you're seeking that ambition? Are you getting further away from Krishna, or are you getting closer to Krishna? Right? Okay, so now the practical aspects. How do we do this? Okay. It's a very famous verse. Asamayam mahabhavo manaduyim graham janam abhasena tu kanteya vyagena chagriyahate. Lord Krishna said, the mighty armed son of Kunti is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind, but it is possible by suitable practice and detachment. Now, suitable practice, abhyas, vairagya, detachment. And detachment are verbs, they're not nouns. Verbs means you have to do it, action. Yeah? Not, oh, okay, it's something like a task. I accept the jnana. Practice and detachment. Yes, I know what it is, practice and detachment. No, it means you have to do it. Krishna is saying, not contemplation, action. Action. Yeah? Chapter 6, last chapter in Karma Yoga, action. Yeah? Okay. So, here's the secret. Yeah. So, you see that. Okay? So, at the end is your real self. Yeah? Sitting in the channel. You are the soul. Yeah? In this picture, it looks like the soul is watching a horror movie. I apologise for that. But that's the only picture I can find. From horror movie to real life. Yeah. Then we've got the drivers of the channel, the intelligence, right? And you've got the reins on the senses, the mind. Yeah. And you've got the senses, which are wild horses. Yeah. I want to have a hot chocolate. Hot chocolate, where is it? Oh, Krishna, what's it? Oh, I should have thought of you before I did that. It can be done. Practice. How do you learn for exam? You repeat. Right? We have been here for trillions of births. There are conditions we do it for ourselves. We just start to practice, and Krishna will come and help us. No, I'm not going to eat the chocolate sweeties for my tongue. This is for me, I give it up. Later on, I'll make it a lovely dessert, Krishna. Start to develop that heart of love for the Lord and selflessness. Okay, so what's going wrong with the world we're living in? Okay. Right, instead of soul, intelligence, mind and senses, SIMS, 99% of conditioned souls are doing this. Senses, I want something. Then the mind follows the senses. Then the intelligence follows the mind. And the soul gets sucked into different karma because it says gratification. Our impulse is reversed. That's our habit. That's the disease we have. So we are here in this hospital to reverse this disease, to do reverse. You are soul, intelligence, mind, senses. And why does Jnana Yoga come second to Bhakti? To Bhakti, the soul, the Indriyani, the Sab-Indriyani is engaged, the real senses of the soul. Okay, when you do Harinam, Sakaitam, right? And pleasure is coming from the soul is driving you through. There is no material desire. Right? So, the senses, the mind, intelligence, of course, false ego, and the soul, the senses, mind, intelligence, false ego, and the subtle body. You have your physical body and the subtle body, the psycho-physical makeup that comes to you after many, many births. Right? And the way you dissolve that, the best way to look at it is acid dissolving wood. Right? If acid is very, very strong, if you're focused on the holy name in your chart, you don't walk around, you sit in one place, you face the wall, it's very painful. Every time your mind wanders, you do the beat again, initially. So initially we should take 3 hours, so the mind is habits and not wandering at all. then the pleasure is coming. That's the acid that's going to dissolve the subtle body, the false ego. If you dilute the acid, mind starts wandering, you walk around on the phone chanting, you don't do Harinam Sankirtan, then the subtle body is going to take a lot longer to dissolve. The ego will take a lot longer to be removed. Right? So the level of focus you put towards Krishna, Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, verse 11, as each come to me, I reward them accordingly, proportionately to as they approach me. I will reduce the subtle body. The more focused we are, when we start doing japa for Krishna and not for ourselves, and we think, okay, now I'm doing the mantra, again, I love the way I'm doing this next beat, Krishna. Listen, really doing this for you now. Not, today I'm going to get up and do it doesn't really take a long time, a lot of births, to kind of destroy the subtle body and the tendency to sense gratification that way. You're really diluting your acid, right? Before you put it on. Don't do that. Right? Real focus. Really like, I don't want to be bored in this place again. Really want to focus. Intention. That has to be there. Okay. So, why do we have to focus so hard? Because our conditioned state, we always wanted to enjoy the wrong senses, the senses of a material body, whether it's hot, dog, or human, it doesn't matter. Right? Krishna warns us, ISKCON Temple. The senses are so strong and impetuous, the Arjuna, that they forcibly carry away the mind, even of a man seeking discrimination, who is endeavouring to control them. Yeah. Such a bad habit of enjoying the senses of these material bodies, of so many births. You have to put the effort in. If you had a bad habit of learning how to drive, or pressing the brake all of a sudden, it's a habit that you do without even realising it. The driving instructor says, why do you keep pressing the brake all the time? Oh, let's get over this thing. You have to, over time, undo the habit. Practice. Abhyas. You have to tell ourselves repeatedly. The Kali Yuga break. Last week, everyone was just trying to get in class. The famous verse. Prasaya Vasahaya. Visnu Yajana. Munda. Suvunda Bhattiyo. Munda Bhavava. Yupradita. The Kali Yuga brain is not the same as the Satya Yuga brain. Kali Yuga body is not the same as the Satya Yuga body. We have a diminished intelligence, but we have the holy name. But our intelligence is so diminished that we want to try this. We don't want to focus on getting ourselves out of here. We have to focus. We have to encourage each other to focus. So, Sankirtan. Right? Many of you will know this. If you walk through the streets of chant as a group, about 2 or 3 hours becomes 50 rounds of chanting. Pure chanting, right? Now, if you can't chant Hare Krishna purely, what do they do in some of their very Chaitanya-focused temples? If you can't chant focus, you do a lot of Harinam. Why? Because you're dissolving the subtle body faster. You're getting the equivalent of pure chanting. And by reducing the false ego and containing the mind and intelligence, when you go back to do your chanting, you'll find it a lot easier. The yajna for Kali Yuga is very nice. Walking through the streets. Eventually, where you want to get to, ideally, to avoid this trap of 95% of people going to the upper planetary systems, as they're now teaching in Mayapur. Is Krishna really, I want to be also anywhere for all time. If I have to go to hell, I will go to hell, that's where I'm most needed. I will get a terrible body and I'll suffer there. I'm suffering for you, because I'm in transcendental happiness. Yeah? The happiness of the soul surpasses the pains of the body. That's where we're trying to get to. So when I talk to some, I'm talking about some seriously elevated devotees and saying, you'll come to Australia, They said to me, what's the most horrible place in Adelaide? Salisbury? I've been looking it up on the internet. Can we go there in a hurry now? You know, that's what I want to do, right? Because they know that's showing Krishna through love. I'm not the body. I'm not concerned about others think whether someone hits me or something when you're hurrying around, something abuses me. No. They have the perception that they are the soul, and the soul is there to serve Krishna. You know? And that's when they can dovetail the desires, the Srila Prabhupada's mission completely. Okay, quite a few points there. Previous paragraph was a lot easier, it's just about the gopis. This one had this sentence. Jnana Yoga simply causes suffering for those who are free, immersed in pure love of God. Yes, because they want to go back to Goloka. If you want the slides, just text me, I'll send you the slides. Don't worry about writing all the notes now. That's what I'm doing. So, we have to practice. We have to understand when we are being selfish. Right? Not harshly, but hang on. And every day we start to audit and look back 3 years ago. About 10 years ago, I used to get tired chanting, I'd stop after 5 rounds. Watch Netflix. So it's privilege. But at some point I thought, I've got to have faith in this process. Otherwise, and no matter we have all of brahmacharis who did very well, so I thought maybe like my brahmachari, I'm going to try and start copying him. Instruct to copy people. Okay, really does. He goes in the corner, he faces the wall, he's chanting very intensely. When I tried to chant facing the wall in the corner, after 3 minutes, I thought, oh my God, my bum really hurts. How does this guy do this? Oh, it's so painful. Maybe I'll go for a walk now. I've done 2 hours. But we have to come back and force again. Consistency is what Krishna says. Effort. Eventually, yes, look at the wall. You chant. Immerse in chanting now and then. It's listening. Nothing going through my heads. The mind is gone. Let's hold the beat. Let's do that beat again. Do that beat again. Because we're doing this for Krishna, not for ourselves. We want to show Krishna love. Because we don't want to be born here again. We're an eternal servant. Of course, we'll go anywhere Krishna wants us to go. We'll suffer anything for Krishna. So why can we not suffer the same beat a few times to improve? So just maybe that will help. If you're struggling, it's fine. And as you progress, you must realize, for trillions of lives, you've ignored Krishna. Tell Krishna, I'm the worst living entity. All material spiritual worlds. I ignored you for trillions of births as I stood there. I need to chant this purely. I'm not arrogant. I don't believe I'm making progress. Krishna, every day I'm forgetting you all the time. It's not like thinking of you constantly. Bhagavad Gita says, what's the highest standard at the end of the section yoga? Yogi nama prasarja sam matkanatya atmana. Those are constantly thinking of me. Who doesn't want to forget me? Because forgetfulness of Krishna is separation from Krishna. Who wants to be separated from Krishna? Nobody. Who wants to forget Krishna? No, because you don't want to be separated from Krishna. Go in the car, let's watch some Krishna movie. Go home, straight away go home, look at Krishna. Not go home and go to the kitchen and have a glass of milk. Or make myself some chai or whatever it is. No, first go home. Where's Krishna? Krishna. No one came to you. Honestly, then I go to the next room. Is there a picture of Krishna there? What should I do before I start some material thing? Constant application, Krishna is saying, all the way through Bhagavad Gita. Not do a little bit, and a couple of weeks later come back, and remember me again. No. The one who never forgets me will return to my abode. Because if you go to Goloka Vrindavan now, and you see these, touchstones of well-wishing trees that give you anything, you're going to go, hello tree, can I have a Mercedes-Benz, please? And Krishna's like, what? Why do you want a Mercedes-Benz? You don't need to, Krishna doesn't mean this. No, if you want for yourself, go back to the spiritual world. You're abusing the things in the spiritual world. That's why I ended up here. We were probably touching these trees and going, That was a nice closing for myself today. Thank you. I regard myself as the worst. I'm a horrendous devotee. Trying to be a devotee, of course, pretending to be one all the time. Pretending all the time to be a devotee. Oh yes, I decided that. Ego is so strong, isn't it? Trying to put us back in the material world all the time. No, that'll be us and our practicing detachment. Okay, questions? Yeah.
It was at the beginning of class, throughout the class, we were talking about desires. So, it's like quite impactful. So, is that mean we should not have desires at all? Because Bhagavad says that human beings are inherently not loaded with material nature and want to enjoy forever. So, how can we possibly dovetail these desires with Krishna? Can you explain?
That's something I can do. So, what's happened is you have your true self, which is the soul. This body is not you. Yeah? So, but the soul wanted to enjoy for itself. Right? It thinks it's what's separation. Right? So when you look at second and third canto of Bhagavatam, it explains what Brahma had to do. He didn't want to do this. He had to coat you with what's called adhiratamas, which means ignorance, and different levels of ignorance described. The first thing is moha tamas. Your soul actually knows Krishna, it's envious. Oh, I don't want to enjoy you. That's what it is. So in order to reform you, the first coating is moha tamas. It's the idea that you forget the Lord for it. That's actually a part of your material subtle body. Right? And you'll then have to make the effort to undo that. Yeah? So there's two levels of the transcendental enjoyment. Is enjoyment of the soul that's now liberated from the confines of the subtle body. And somebody's going on Harinam and just dancing purely, but there's nothing but love. The body's not engaged in that. It's the real, what we call the sub-indriya, the senses of the soul. The soul is not the body. Chaitanya Charitamrita means what? How does the soul behave when it's taken out of the body in its pure state? When it's away from all the material pollution. Right? So Chaitanya Charitamrita, you have a series of activities that the devotees do, all the associates with Lord Chaitanya, as giving us the example of how to behave once we're no longer in bodily conception. Right? And that example is consistently wanting to serve. But because we are conditioned, the only way we can do that is Harinam Sankirtan. It's the most powerful method, the active, powerful method. If there's no Harinam Sankirtan, when I used to come to Adelaide, so there's not Harinam Sankirtan was going on here. So what I would do is I would fly to Melbourne and do it, or Sydney. Yeah, I've got it because occasionally I was going back to London quite a lot. So I would always go to London, I'd always go to Harinam, because it's so powerful. Because if you can't chant purely, you will get the equivalent of pure chanting by doing Harinam Sankirtan. Okay? And the real thing about Lord Chaitanya, there's incredible YouTube videos for young people, about introduction to Lord Chaitanya, the idea of prayer. So removing the false ego from the heart, as you remove the false ego, prayer is coming in by each percentage. Yeah? That can only come to the practice of pure Purna chanting. Because the Maha Mantra is Krishna. You have to understand that. And Prakriti and your material subtle body is subject to Krishna, under Krishna's control. So Krishna is called the master of the senses, Kesha. So the only way you can purify and engage the real senses and not these body senses, by deeper chanting. So Siddhartha Swami has written a book on chant law. So you should eventually be familiar with the 2 or 3 major books on chanting, and who's written them. Siddhartha Swami chant law. And of course, a lot of stuff was done by Sachinanda Swami, the German. He's the main guy now in ISKCON who does training with chanting. And I got the great privilege of chanting next to him once on a Japa workshop in, I think, Germany, no, it was somewhere north of England. And before I knew it, I'd done it 26 hours. I felt like I'd been there for 2 years. Just the way he trained, the way he listen. You don't realise it. I couldn't even feel the normal distractions were there. I want to, when I'm your age, I would say when I'm 22, like, let me go on a Japan workshop or go out or something. I have a plan, make a plan. So I want to go to Germany, go to one of those workshops, or I'll do one of the programs online, like 20 rupees, or really cheap these programs. It costs me. I'll do an online Japan workshop with Satchidananda Swami or Siddhartha Swami, one of the leading Japan trainers in ISKCON. The information is available out on the internet. The question is whether we want to go and be inquisitive and use it and find it. But the only way you're going to get to your real senses is by purely chanting. And anything that can dissolve the subtle body, the tendency to immediately want to forget. When you go on a chant, Brahma has conditioned you to forget Krishna. If you want to forget this, you want to chant. So you have to show enough effort to Krishna that, okay, minimize the effects of the subtle body. We're diseased. But if we take the medicine like, doctors say take medicine twice every hour. And you say, I take once in the morning, and when I feel like it afternoon, I take 2 of them, evening I take 5. It's not going to work. You're still going to be diseased. Right? You have to take the medicine as it's supposed to. So how do we take the japa medicine? Who is giving japa discussions on YouTube? Most such an understanding. Let me spend 6 hours listening to his lectures. The most important thing we do in this class is japa. So we should know what the main tools of japa are, the main processes, the main standards. They have to be known to us. Well, this is an educational institution, so I'm telling you now, go on YouTube, go and find this out. I'm not saying I'm doing perfect japa, I'm saying I'm trying to. I'm giving you some tips that help me. Nobody here is perfect. If we're perfect, we'll be like, okay, what's the next thing we do for Krishna? Let's go home now, bang. Let's go to some horrendous social hazardous thing and give pure love to Krishna. No, we're not there. We have to be honest. First is honesty. Where am I? Where's my life? Then courage. Everyone is like, I'm going to pretend I don't have any problems. You pretend you have any problems. Everyone else has to pretend everything's perfect. I'm not so advanced. No. Krishna's not going to attract Krishna. It's not going to attract progress. Humility must be there. I must follow them. Now, how do I learn them? If I must follow them. Yeah. Actually, you see many disciples, not always, but many disciples of the Prabhupada left their body at a young age. And if you look at the lives of those people who leave their body at a very young age, you see they're very pure. They didn't need to be here any longer. Yeah. So it's a very good example. I don't want to make it. You can look it up, it's not on Google. Research it. Okay. Pataji.
Thank you for the class. I've got 2 questions if you've done permits.
Yeah.
I'll start with. You were insisting for Sankirtan. Isn't it sitting in Bhagavatam is also Sankirtan or no? Or just only on stage with the Sankirtan?
So that is the 4th hearing here in Bhagavatam. So when we say Nashtasya Bresu Nitya Bhagavata Sevaya, it means there's 2 things. It says there's 2 things there, not one thing. Yeah? The 2 things are listening to Bhagavatam daily, 48 minutes of Bhagavatam daily, dissolves of the body, and serving a pure devotee in Kali Yuga. Yeah? Which normally means Harinam distribution. Yeah? If you look at that, if you go look at Canto 1, Chapter 2, Verse 18, which is Nastra Saya Bresu Nitya Bhagavata Sevaya, Bhagavati Uttama Sloki. That verse. That verse is saying and, is not saying just this is the Bhagavatam. If you go and look at the Bhagavatam. The 2 things. In Kali Yuga, the fastest way of dissolving the subtle body, quickly, if you want, imagine you've got a sink that is blocked. Yeah? Blocked sink. And you can try and put some air in it or put some washing up liquid. And that is very purified by water class, it cleans it there. But if you really want to get the sink clean very quickly, because we don't have a lot of time here on this planet, our life is very short, the quickest way is the most powerful acid, the Harinam Sankirtan. Yeah? And the more you learn about Lord Chaitanya, the more you read Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is this movement is the Harinam Sankirtan movement. Lord Chaitanya, Rupa Goswami, Srila Prabhupada, Rupa Goswami's movement, Lord Chaitanya's movement. Harinam Sankirtan is the fastest way to clean yourself. Yeah? It's like, imagine you put shower on and you have little drips coming out. You do a lot, and it's good. Krishna loves it. Come to Bhagavatam, very important. If you don't come here, you don't learn about Harinam Sankirtan. You don't know about dissolving inside the body. But if you want to put the water full and get clean quicker, and stop thinking material desires, sense gratification, no, you have to go on the streets. You have to put books in your pocket, and you have to chant, and you have to take abuse. When you do the temple, how you progress temple workshops, they say, make them do the austerity. What is more austere? What is more difficult for you? What do you not want to do? Then you go, let me go and do that to get myself to the next level. What do I feel like lazy towards? That's where you're going to make progress. When you're training for, like, if you train for a marathon or something, but when you really start pushing your strength training, when you really start pushing how quickly you're doing it every mile, every kilometre, that's when your training improves. Where do I not want to go? You do what you don't like doing. Because ultimately you're thinking of the bodily conception, like and dislike. But what does the soul enjoy? It wants to enjoy very much something. Because that's when suddenly you see, this is a different pleasure. And when you see that pleasure, you go, this is my real self, this is addictive, I want to do this. Then detachment will come. The thing is, we're so used to the material world. If we want money, we have to work so hard. We're so used to working so hard. In chapter 7 of Bhagavad Gita, we talk about the Buddha approach. Krishna says in chapter 7, verse 16. We have this condition of everything's wrong. Lord Chaitanya said, no, just go on the streets, jump in, all the material elements dissolve. That sounds too easy. Material condition, too easy, can't be true. There was a time when someone said, go to Bhagavatam class, dissolve the subtle body. It sounds too easy. You wouldn't believe it. We have this conditioning. We have to understand how we're conditioned. Why are we responding like this to this advice? Got advice, we're responding. When we're responding like this to the condition, how do we undo the condition?
It's a nice one, as you said, Sankirtan and attending Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam is glorification. Bhagavatam itself is a glorification. The devotees have glorified, and devotees being glorified. Bhagavad Gita is Krishna being a minister. Now we see there are different services in the movement, particularly now the temple itself. So when Sankirtan is happening, everybody will not go for doing Sankirtan, books in pocket and now. The person who is doing pot wash, he thinks it's a menial service somebody has to do. Somebody will be peeling the potato and he thinks this is also service. Capacity and here and there. And now, for example, me, we never went for Sankirtan. So that means we are not qualified for anything like that. So it depends on one person. If everybody goes for Sankirtan only, that means it's a Sankirtan society for Krishna consciousness.
That's what it's supposed to be. That's what it's supposed to be.
Yes, it's supposed to be.
But probably you're right.
So Sankirtan is glorification. But it's Sankirtan, that means Sangha, with everybody doing it. So glorification is there in the pot wash also. Glorification is there in cooking also. Glorification is there in cleaning the toilets also. And glorification is also there when we are earning something for Krishna in the form of cooking a bookstall or a food stall or something like that. So I think it's all one and all. It can't be only one thing that if a person does this thing, then only he is qualified for X, Y, Z or so.
But no one's saying that. No one's saying that. But what's talking about is how do you rapidly absolve your desire for sense gratification? How do you get rid of the false ego? For most people, what is the quickest method of purification? It's not always the case, but in most cases, what is the quickest method? There's no, Prabhupada explained, it doesn't matter whether you're doing the toilets or doing the actual puja, they're all set on the transcendental platform, because it's all divine service. But in terms of diminishing the desire for sense gratification, what is going to be the most effective, quickest in Kali Yuga? It's Harinam Sankirtan. And if you you get a chance, you must read Chaitanya Charitamrita. You see that what happens to Rupa and Sanatana Goswami, they go for Bhagavatam classes so they can become ready to go and Harinam Sankirtan. That's where they're going to get, if you want access to transcendental pleasure quickly, and once you have access to transcendental pleasure, you get pure attachment to Krishna, and therefore your chances of getting into spiritual world are higher. If you want that quickly, you have to do what Lord Chaitanya says, and what he teaches Rupa and Sanatana Goswami. He doesn't teach that. He teaches that you go out and spread my name because we're sharing love. I want everyone to hear the sound of this, even the trees, the plants, wherever they are, so they get purified. Whereas the process of cleaning the toilet is purification for that person. That's okay, that's fantastic. But it doesn't have the benefit because it's not giving.
Krishna says, so, as the people do, then the Shrestha people and the other people follow it.
Yeah.
So, what we have followed is Rastas Prabhu, we have followed Anand Krishna Prabhu. Anand Krishna Prabhu will come in 2016 or 17. He will come in the morning, he will do Mangala. After Mangala, he will go for cooking, breakfast cooking, serving breakfast. Then for feast, Sunday feast, we will do cooking. And after Sunday feast, he will be the last person to take the plate. And we will use the serving, and with him we will take. And then we will clear off everything. Then we will put it in the bottle. Then he will go at 2:30 or 3 o'clock. So this is how we were being trained into it. But if the change is needed, always the change needs the time to move. It doesn't matter anything.
Of course not. No one's diminishing anybody's service. That's not what we're talking about. Right? What we're talking about is if someone was to ask a question, I've been doing service in Temple for 20 years. But I still have materialistic tendencies. I still have attachments to my house, my family, my car, my bank balance, to hot chocolate, to jalebi. How do I stop that? How do I stop the one thing, that pervades all of this is how do I stop sense gratification? What's the most powerful way for me to do that? Is having meditation. It's not like the other methods don't matter. They are part of your progressive spiritual development. Look, the Bhagavad Gita says, as soon as you come towards me, you are relieved of the worst kind of fear. The worst kind of fear is not getting a human form of life. Whatever you do in this life is eternally carried forward for you. But at some point, we have to ask ourselves, audit ourselves, where is our mentality? Am I perfect? Am I not perfect? I'm serving, I'm benefiting, I am slowly purifying myself. But what is my spiritual ambition? Materialistic people are always so ambitious. So many people are ambitious. I want this for my children, I want this house, I want this. But what is our ruthless spiritual ambition to gain our ego? That is up to each individual person. No, it doesn't mean that cleaning the toilet temple is not valuable. It means extremely valuable. Prabhupada has created these different services to engage at different levels. But also we have a responsibility to make sure people are not deluded into thinking that's the beginning of that level of purification or that rate of purification. Rate means the rate over time of we all getting purified. But everyone is magnificent in Krishna's eyes. Devotees are highly exalted. Even Krishna loves his enemies, and all of you guys. But we're talking about how do we make small incremental improvements to the next level. That's what we're trying to do. It doesn't mean anything that somebody's doing, making flowers or cleaning the floor, is not important. It's very important. But if they want to have even more spirituality, even more desire for service, even more, let me forget everything in this world and only want to deal with Krishna. That's what we're trying to get to. How do we get to that point?
But that one needs time. That's the only.
Then of course it needs time. Of course it does. Yeah, but we must be very, very wary of not getting seduced into thinking we've made it. And the only way we can be not seduced into thinking we made it is to knowing what it is that we need to be made to. If we don't know where we need to get to, we'll be too comfortable. They always say in Bhakti, have your comfortable level and have your stretch level. And always bear in mind that you need to be up. Don't be too comfortable, because then you won't see the improvements. You won't get past your conditions. We're all diseased, we have egos, we all have How do we get past them faster is what I'm talking about. Not that we're not going to get past them through all this other service. It's very important. Very important. And everyone is very pious in that sense. And my Bhagavatam was to all devotees across the world for any form of service. Even Bhagavatam, one second, is pious. There are those that we working in the temple for many years, like one of Krishna Guru, or yourself, Mataji, but we're talking about not getting too comfortable, not getting too satisfied. This is it. I'm doing service for that. Yes, it's fine. But we are Satchitananda, we are the soul, eternally knowledgeable and blissful. If we want to feel that, what we really are, then we have to push. We have to push beyond the comforting and doing some bhakti. That's the material conception. Now we want to push more. There's more in all the devotees. Because they're eternal souls full of knowledge and they're going to be happy, transcendental. No matter what the material covering is, the actual real person is incredible. The soul is amazing. We have to uncover that material cover. That's what we're trying to do. Just a bit more. Just a little bit more than what the comfort level is. That's what I mean. Right. Oh, right. This is Lord Chaitanya's movement. The problem is that Lord Chaitanya is not extremely well known. He's not taught in every school in India. He's not extremely well known. The essence of his movement is not known. And until we reconfigure this movement more towards Lord Chaitanya, we're not going to see what the movement's really about. We're not going to get that internal pleasure. We can be doing progress, but we're not getting there beyond. It's like making the subject without any curry, That's what I like to do. But anyway, don't ever think that it means what you're doing is not wonderful. What we're trying to do out of love is always to see that there's more that we can do and more ways we can improve. Always, Because we have unlimited potential. Don't limit yourself to what the world tells you, what other people tell you. Okay. Anything else? Prabhupada,